Hello and welcome to Whisky.com, where fine spirits meet. And I'm here in the north of Scotland at the Dunrobin Castle. And this was the seat of the Duke of Sutherland, and later he was the Earl of Sutherland. And this is one of the longest continuously inhabited building of Great Britain. And it's not quite the typical style, it's more of a bit of a French style of castle. So a bit atypical for the region. And the guy we're looking at, the Earl of Sutherland, that is the guy that we are facing today, because he was actually building a distillery, and that's what we're going to look at today.
The history of the Clynelish Distillery starts in 1819 with a man called Marquis of Stafford, and he was an Englishman. He married into English royalty, and the time of 1819 was the time of the clearances, which is kind of a dark chapter, because it was meant that people with small farms were just relocated, and they were sent to Canada, to Australia, or just to somewhere else, and the smaller farms were combined and into bigger, more profitable farms, and more sheep farming was introduced. And during that time, that man invested and he built the distillery of Clynelish. But the distillery of Clynelish that is standing here today was not the distillery he built. He built the Clynelish Distillery on the location of Brora, so that changed over time, but we'll come to that later. It wasn't highly successful, it was coming by, but it really kicked off in 1896, and it was getting bigger, and it was even already back then trading with Johnnie Walker, and they have old written down how much was sold and how much was produced, and it's quite nice to see that. So it was growing up and getting better, and in 1967 they actually built a new distillery, and that is now what we would call Clynelish. Back in the days they called it Clynelish A and Clynelish B. The original distillery that they had, they actually kind of renamed it and reopened it, and under the name of Brora. Clynelish is a Gaelic name, means so much as the hill with the fertile fields, or the green fields, or the hill with a garden. And Brora is not a Gaelic name, but a Nordic Viking name, and that's so much called as the bridge over the water. So it was reopened and rebranded in 1968, and they were quite different, because Brora is more of a smoky style and Clynelish is that typical fruity Northern Highland style whiskey. It operated until the global recession and had to close in 1983, but now the company that owns the distilleries, both distilleries now, Diageo, actually rebuilt the distillery and tried to replicate what they closed back in the days, and invested a lot even in Clynelish as well, with brand new visitor center and shopping and tasting rooms, and it's really beautiful. So a big refurbish in 2020, and that was kind of delayed, and it's now open in 2021, but it will kick off with good amounts of people visiting the distillery in 22. So that was the history, and let's see how the whiskey at Clynelish is made.
So let's talk about the ingredients for the Clynelish whiskey. The water comes from the Clynmilton burn. Clyn means as much as hill, so it comes from the hills, and there is a burn, a small creek, a river that runs with water, and they get their water from that burn to make the whiskey. And it's a Highland Scottish water, so it's really, really good for making whiskey. The barley actually comes from about 1 hour drive south of here from the Black Isle, then gets milled downstairs, and I think the mash tun is just being washed, is then filled with 12 tons of grind down coarse grist and mixed together with 49,300 liters of water and then continuously warmed up. And they are using a modern continuous mashing process. So it's not like you have 3 distinct waters, but you have a continuous process where everything is heated up and continuously filled into the wash bags. Yeah. Back in 1967, they introduced the cast iron with a copper lid, and they renovated that in 2016, 2017 to replace it with a new, more environmentally friendly, more efficient stainless steel lauter tun. So yeah, that's the new process, and you can have a lot more efficiency. After that, you have a very, very sweet mash that is perfect for the alcoholic fermentation that goes on just right next to here in the wash bags. So we started off with a really sweet malty mash, and now we're off to the fermentation. The Clynelish Distillery has 8 wooden wash bags with 58,000 liters of capacity, and they filled it with 250, or they add 250 kilograms of yeast, and that starts off the alcoholic fermentation. In the back we have 2 stainless steel wash bags, and they really had to work with them to get the same kind of flavor as they get from the Oregon pine wash bags. So let me tell you a little bit of fermentation, because they have a nice chart of what happens during the fermentation. Fermentation, everybody thinks, yeah, fermentation is just there to create alcohol and yeah, that's it. That's wrong. Because in the fermentation, also the flavors are created, and the distillation part is kind of a filtering part where you take out the unwanted flavors and make a spirit out of it. But the flavors are actually mostly created during the fermentation. You start off with a really cereal touch. You still have some of that maltiness from the mash, and that goes over with alcoholic fermentation and a bit of a nuttiness, and then everything gets a bit more heavy with grassy tones, earthy tones. That goes over a bit of a fresher, herby stuff. Then we come over to more floral, and it becomes more, a little bit more the remembrance of sweetness, and goes into fresh fruits and tropical fruits. And that's the time of the fermentation. But it's not all alcoholic fermentation. The alcoholic fermentation, if you want to ferment, you have to do at least 35 hours, depends on what yeast you have. There are some yeasts that are even faster, but with a normal time, the absolute minimum would be like 35 hours. 40 hours is like, short fermentation. 45 is like an average. That is the maximum length of the alcoholic fermentation. With 48 hours, you have no alcoholic fermentation left, but it goes into a lactobacterial fermentation, and that creates different flavors. And when you look at the chart, Clynelish is all the way here. So they are just with fresh fruits, tropical fruits, and they are really that typical Northern Highland distillery. They have this fermentation time of 86 hours, which is really, really long. At the top of my head, I can only name 1 or maybe 2 distilleries that have a longer fermentation time. So this is really, these people have to invest, because 86 hours is a long time, and the longer the process is, the more of the equipment you have to have and the more money you have to invest. But that's what you need if you want a nice, fresh, fruity, tropical fruits, Highland style whiskey. So let's see how we prepare these fruits in the next stage, the distillation. So we're in the still room. We're coming with 9% wash, with 9% alcohol, and the distillery has 6 stills, the wash stills with a capacity of 25,000 liters volume. And the first thing you immediately realize is the spirit stills are bigger. So they have 26,000 liters of capacity and 26,200. So how come they're bigger? Because usually you're left with less after distillation of wash. We're left with less low wines than you run in with the wash. So, and that's because of speed. if you run the wash still faster than the spirit still, you need a bigger spirit still. And that's exactly what they do here at Clynelish. And yeah, so a wash still is not that a big effect on the flavor of the whiskey. So usually you run a wash still, yeah, pretty fast. And yeah, the spirit stills are then bigger and run, yeah, slower to have a really good separation of alcohol. You also have a reflux bowl that is important, more copper contact, so you get all the sulfury tastes out, and you're left with a really nice, fruity, typical Northern Highland style new make spirit. I have the new make spirit here, and I can smell it. It's beautiful. It's fresh fruits, pears, very, very fresh, and also a little waxy. And that's kind of a bit of a secret and a bit of a style that is unique to Clynelish. And they have it since 1890, so it's really a big tradition, and that's really what they want to preserve here. And let me have a little bit of an excursion, because this is a really nice place to look at what copper does to distillation and how the copper reacts, and how you can actually see a little bit of how hot a distillery runs. The wash still is not affecting the taste so much, so you run it pretty fast. What you want to do is you run the non-alcoholic parts, you want to separate from the alcohol, so you run it pretty fast. The pot ale has pretty much 0% alcohol, and it comes off low wines with 20%. If you look at the condensers, they have pretty short condensers here at Clynelish, and that's a bit of their thing. But if you look at the colors of the condensers, you see they are not as shiny new copper colored at the bottom as they are at the top. That's because the temperature at the top is really high, and that makes the copper react to the air, and then it becomes a bit of a brass, bit more dull, and the bottom is still very, very shiny and what we really see as copper. And you can see that very well because they are from 2016 kind of brand new stills, because stills run for 5 decades, maybe even longer. And they are the same condensers they have at the wash still and with the spirit still. So they have the same size, the same length, but the spirit still, the new shiny area where the condenser is still pretty low temperature, is much higher. So that's how you can see that the temperatures they run the spirit still are lower. And that's what you want to have if you want to have a good alcoholic separation, a nice, gentle, fruity spirit. You want to run it as a slow pace, or you want to have a really, really tall still. So they have a normal still, and they run to really, really slow. So that's how they end up with a really nice Northern Highland, fruity, gentle new make spirit. Hopefully we can see a bit of the warehouses because it's raining really much. But let's see how the whiskey is matured. So yeah, the weather is great. it's windy, it's stormy, and there's a little bit of snow also going on. So unfortunately we're not allowed to go into the warehouses. And the warehouses you see back there, they are used to store Clynelish casks, but they are not from Clynelish. They are actually the Brora warehouses. The Clynelish Distillery does not have any warehouses, but they are part of the Diageo company. So they are storing the Clynelish casks all over Scotland. And it's company policy to mix the warehouses, because if you have one warehouse that's breaking down or burning down or something like that, you don't wipe out one brand of whiskey, but you are losing kind of proportional all brands a little bit. But it really didn't happen till now. So back there are some Clynelish casks. What is very interesting is that they really like these warehouses to store the Clynelish, because they are dunnage warehouses and they are close to the sea. You can't see it because of the weather, but it's not far away, and you have a good amount of sea influence. Oh, the weather is coming sideways. And the Clynelish whiskey is a mixture between sherry and bourbon. They say around about 60% sherry cask, 40% bourbon cask, and it's up to the gin beverage to mix the two components together to keep the flavor of Clynelish as it always has been. And yeah, it's getting really cold out here. Let's get inside and have some Clynelish whiskey.
So yeah, we're having a little interview and a little chat and 3 nice whiskeys. So I'm sitting here with Nara Madasamy. You've been 25 years in the beer industry, and now you've been 5 years with Diageo, and now you're the senior site manager here, responsible for Clynelish and Brora. Thank you very much for having us here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It's a really interesting job to create something old in a new way with Brora. So yeah, very nice.
Yeah, thanks. It's a great opportunity to meet you guys.
Yeah, and thank you. The distillery is really a nice place. We're up here very far north. So yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
So the 14-year-old, you want to have a try?
Yep.
So in the 14-year-old, you can you feel the spirit a little bit. It's a nice fresh Highland, very fruity.
Yeah, exactly.
So, sláinte.
Cheers.
I like it. Very fresh. And you get that little bit of a bourbon character in there. Just a little more fruitiness than I had in the spirit as well. So your spirit is definitely a northern Highland character, but there's also a specialness going on there. Can you tell me a bit about the spirit?
Yeah, if you look at it, in Diageo, we have around 30 distilleries. So out of that, only 2 distilleries we produce this particular waxy character. So Clynelish is one among them, and we are the major producer. And we produce around 4.8 million liters per year.
Well, that's quite a
and
number.
this waxy character is inbuilt of the nativity style, in the sense like the way in which the process has been adopted, the way in which we are getting the water, that's going to develop waxy character how we want it.
So I've never heard about that, but I love it, and I've had it with the new make spirit. I had it in my hand and I smelled it, and you can even feel that in there. That's I've actually never had that kind of experience, but I do love it, and I do love the Northern Highland style, even though the climate is very rugged and really really rough. The whiskey is really nice and gentle, fruity, and just. It's just nice to sit in there and look out there. That's just brilliant.
It's a good weather, good whiskey.
The weather not so good, but the whiskey definitely. So the next one we're gonna have, that's the distillery exclusive, and it's bourbon cask maturation only.
Yep.
So that is. But it has a bit more maturation than the first one from my point of view. The distillery character is definitely there, but it's I like it. No, so
because the water is the main one. Because if you look at the water where we are getting it, that's going to determine. Because every places of water is totally different. If you look at the water, what we were getting it's like a PT oriented water. If you look at the color of the water, as good as it's very good, and it have the nativity character, that's going to bring it for the Clynelish one. So that's a very important, and we are not treating water or anything. It is just filter, remove the suspended matters, take the water, put it for the mashing. So that's what it's going to bring. What is the character of the Highland?
Ah, yeah. So that's probably why the distillery was built here.
Yeah.
Because of the water. It's always the water and a bit of a sourcing of the malt. Yeah. The main the ingredients are always important. I like it, and it's a bit. Now I know why it has a bit more oomph to it. It has 48%. I didn't expect the 14-year-old to have 46%. It tastes much rounder. I like it. I like it. Yeah, let's have the Johnnie Walker then.
Yeah, definitely.
And the Johnnie Walker Gold label. It's said to have the most Clynelish in it.
Because if you look at it, Clynelish, the history, it is always associated with the Johnnie Walker.
Oh, yeah.
So the day one, the Johnnie Walker started the blended whiskey. So that time onwards, the Clynelish is played a major role. So, and also if you look at it, Clynelish, whatever we produce, almost 95% of the stock which goes for Johnnie Walker blending. And only 5% we do for our own single malt kind of whiskey.
Ah, okay.
So the majority will go.
I think people would love to have more expressions from Clynelish, but if you're looking for more expressions, you have to come up to the very, very north and get the distillery edition, because it's lovely.
Because the place is very important, like where you are storing, how you are doing, adapted to the process. Like if you look at it, our process, the way of process here from mashing, then fermentation and distillation, it has been very systematic way. And also if you look at the design of the stills, that itself will tell you that how the design of the still which is going to contribute for the waxy character.
Now I do feel a bit about that Clynelish character, and if you know where you have to focus, and if you've had the raw spirit, and if you've just had the 14, now you know. But I also do feel a little bit of Kalila. Yeah, I do feel a little bit of Kalila.
That's why Johnnie Walker, if you read the history, they always call it as a four corners. Like there are four corners means like a Clynelish, Clynkinchi, Kulila, Lagavulin. So these are the people. They always will be combined together.
Yeah, but
because Cardu is, because there are four sides. They call it as one is a Clynelish, Cardu, then Clynkinchi, and Clynelish. The four sides is called four corners.
The four corners, yeah, definitely.
That four spirits always will be there for the Johnnie Walker.
Oh yeah, I love it, and it's now you can, when you've tried all the four corners, then you can feel what the blend is a bit made of. And yeah, Jim Beveridge did a really good job there.
Yeah, that's our blenders.
So the last question, probably all the people would like to ask you. Tons more stuff about Brora. So we just had a little talk about Brora. So it is already commissioned?
It is commissioned. We are taking up the production right now and trying to compare with what we were produced earlier when we were shut down, what we were produced, and we are trying to match the exact character with the support from the whiskey specialists, technical center, our process engineers, process support team. They're all supporting with us to try to match the character. So that's what.
Okay, so you're in production, but you can't really produce the end product yet because you just find the spirit from back then.
Yeah, we started producing it and we are producing it. The only thing is we are not gone up to the mass like a full capacity. We are just doing like 2 mash per week, 3 mash per week, testing all the plant and equipments, make sure that it's all well fit for the purpose, those kind of scenario.
And how do you know when you have the spirit right?
The spirit is like we have a nosing panel team, so they always knows it and they will give the evaluation. And also we have the chemical parameter analysis we used to carry out and make sure that rest of the chemical parameters are all in control to get the desired character.
You can match it from what you have.
Yeah.
Diageo has a huge archive. So can you compare it to the spirit back then?
We have a lot of new make spirit samples which we have, so that can be good for us. And our noses, they always check with that, and also the whiskey specialist team, they always support us if it is a gap. So we always, it's like a, basically it's a combined team effort, and they are recreating the Brora in the way it has been closed. So we want to make sure that we are producing the right character what we are supposed to.
Okay, and so how was the character? Is that a peaty whiskey, or is that a Northern Highlands whiskey? Is it?
We can produce a desired version, but right now we are trying with the initial stage with the fruity character.
Fruity character. Okay, Northern Highland character. Okay, so yeah, hopefully it will work out pretty fine. But then we have to wait, right?
Yeah, definitely. You should come back and visit us when the productions are run, and you can have a nosing session with us, and we can give you the different sample at each and every stages of process. We can give you new make spirit, nose it, and we have a older character, like when we were sat down, what was the character we produced.
Okay,
so we can do the comparison studies, and we can take you around the cask stores, and we can show you that how the casks are getting filled. So everything we can.
Okay, so we're just not quite there yet. I will have to come back in a few years then. I will definitely do that.
Okay.
So yes, I think we're about at the end. So thank you very much for showing us around the whole distillery, and thank you very much for answering questions, especially about Brora. It's just very interesting for us, and especially for you as well, probably. So thank you very much for watching this video. And if you found this video interesting, then please feel free to share it with your friends who might also like whiskey. And thank you, and see you next time.